And I return to Ace Attorney Chronicles. Witnesses, please state your names and occupations for the court. Is he chewing on his helmet strap there? Constable Raleigh Bates, sir. Nothing to report on the street, sir. And I'm Mrs. Beat. Patricia's my name. I'm proud to say I'm this young town hero's wife. What's the story here? Well, in truth, we've not been married long. In fact, we celebrated our first anniversary only the other day. No, it was your husband I was asking about. He seems tired. Hardly surprising. As being an honorable occupation, patrolling the beach is the most demanding work in the world. Oh, really? I'm sure I've heard that before, actually. Indeed. Apart from rare days off, our gallant officers trudge some 20 miles a day, you know. They patrol boarding houses and pubs, collect taxes, survey the streets, check that meters are reading true, and they're responsible for keeping the streets clean and lighting and extinguishing our streetlights. There are a number of items on that list that don't sound much like policing duties at all. I wouldn't just be falling asleep on my feet, I'd have collapsed long ago. But it goes without saying that a policeman's primary duty is the apprehension of criminals. Even when he's off duty, a constable is expected to investigate and resolve any crimes on his beat. For the London Bobby is a man of honor. And a man of slumber. On the day in question, this man and his wife were walking down Briar Road in the opposite direction, and they witnessed the incident as it occurred. Is that not correct, Mr. and Mrs. Beat? That's right, sir. Isn't it, Rolly? Constable Rolly Bates, sir. Nothing to report on the street, sir. What a great witness he's going to be. Very good. I'd like to hear your formal testimonies now, please. You will tell the court exactly what you saw on the afternoon of the incident. Yes, sir. What the witnesses saw. It was our wedding anniversary and Raleigh was taking me out for a meal. There was no time to change after work. Oh, okay, I can't press on any of this. Anyway, two silhouettes appeared out of the fog on the pavement in front of us. All of a sudden, one of them just collapsed on the floor. And the other scattered something before running off. We ran straight over, of course, and then went for help at a nearby police box. Definitely that Japanese man in the dock. Raleigh and I both saw him as clear as day. Well, this is extremely compelling testimony, I must say. Oh dear, this policeman and his wife are claiming to have positively identified Mr. Natsume at the scene. If their testimony is true, the alternative course of events that you established in the summation examination will be quashed. It's death knell, in fact, and because that alternative was never viable in the first place. What an unfortunate bit chancing, and on your wedding anniversary too. Oh, I know, but I still managed to go out for the evening with my man. I thank the Lord for that. Gosh, the life of a London Bobby sounds very hard indeed. Indeed. However, this cross-examination will be over in minutes. You may well have time to rest this afternoon. What do you mean by that? My learned friend, the witnesses saw the face of the man fleeing the scene. They are testifying under oath that it was without doubt the accused Mr. Soseki Natsume. And one of these witnesses is a policeman, no less. So you appreciate the gravity of the situation, I'm sure. Except that the man's so tired his wife has to do all the talking. Enough preamble. Counsel for the defense. Commence the cross-examination, please. Yes, my lord. witnesses saw. Wedding anniversary. Raleigh's taking him for a meal. There was no time to change after work.
Hold it!
No time to change after work, you say. Are you also a member of the police, Mrs. Beat?
Oh no, sadly not. It's a job for strapping young men only. Women, children, and the elderly can't apply.
How do I do this again? Oh yeah, this. Okay. Well, I think you can probably see why children and the elderly can't do the job, can't you?
I think Raleigh looks ever so handsome in his uniform. It suits you down the ground, doesn't... What? It suits you down the ground, doesn't it, darling? What? I just finished my beat. Pat and I were headed back to the station, as I was actually planning on getting changed there.
Is he talking in his sleep? This is creepy.
Oh no, Raleigh. I much prefer you in uniform. Sometimes I don't recognize you when I see you in plain clothes.
Okay. Oh dear, that doesn't seem healthy. Kindly adhere to the point. You were going for a meal after you had finished your beat for the day, correct?
That's right, sir. Yes, although I was fit to drop, to be honest, after spending the whole day on my feet. But policing is my life, sir. As long as I'm proud owner of this, I'll serve my city and my queen to the end.
What's that now?
My warrant card, sir. Proof that I'm a London copper. It has the noble founding principles of the force written on it as a reminder to all us policemen of our sworn duty to patrol the streets of London town and uphold the peace of the common man. Sir, and for such a noble cause I cover 20 miles every single day without fail and without grumble, because I know that the plodding of my boots is all Londoners need to hear to feel safe and secure.
So, fighting crime doesn't appear to come into it then.
But sir, just on that one particular day, I was looking forward to celebrating my wedding anniversary. Mrs. Beat puts up with quite a lot being married to a bobby like me. I wanted to show my dear wife how much I care. Oh, Pat. Oh, Raleigh.
Oh, what a charming couple. Their young love is such a joy to behold. If a little over the top, perhaps? And then, kindly describe what happened next.
Anyway, two silhouettes appeared out of the fog on the pavement in front of us.
Hold it!
Two silhouettes.
That's right. They were coming towards us, walking up Briar Road in the opposite direction.
Walking up Briar Road. Okay.
There was a rather plump figure, followed by a scrawny, thin-looking man.
That does sound exactly like the victim as pictured in this print, and like Mr. Natsume. Yes, unfortunately it does. And you're certain... and you're certain at this time that there's nobody else nearby.
Oh yes, quite certain. It was dark, but there are streetlights on Briar Road, you see. There was nobody else around at all. Isn't that right, my darling? Yes, that's right. Of course, there was a light fog on the ground. But Briar Road is dead straight ahead, and you could see a fairly long way down the pavement. And then there's the street lighting as well. I didn't see any other pedestrians.
Before sleep takes a firm hold, your answer please, Mr. Beat. Are you quite sure of what you've just said?
Yes, sir. As a copper who spends all day, every day, keeping watch on the streets, I'd swear to it, sir. I'm sure as sure as my love for Patricia is true. Oh, Pat. Oh,
oh, God. They're still maintaining there was no one else around other than the victim and the attacker. It's starting to seem like that must be how it really happened. It's beginning to seem like there's nowhere to run. Well, that didn't stop Mr. Natsume, did it? He fled the scene all too convincingly. Thank you. I believe we have a reasonably clear idea of the situation just before the incident now. What happened in the crucial moments that followed?
All of a sudden, one of them just collapsed on the floor. Then the other scattered something before running off.
Hold it!
Scattered something. What do you mean by that?
Oh, well, I couldn't quite make out what it was at the time. But then when we got closer, we realized what it was. Didn't we, darling? Yes, that's right. It was some old books.
I see. Oh, the books.
Yes, sir. The culprit had dropped a number of them, all around where the victim lay on the pavement.
Indeed, that's clearly pictured in this photographic print.
That rotten Japanese man did that when he did the deed.
Hold it!
Let's not forget that it remains to be established that the defendant was indeed the attacker.
But we saw him. He was the man in the dock, without question, sir. The mustache, the hunched back, the cat-like eyes, the taut mouth, the snubbed nose, everything.
Any more insults you want to throw in?
That's right, he looked down at that poor defenseless woman with those terrifying intense eyes, and then suddenly threw his books onto the pavement and ran away.
I see. This is tough. They seem as though they're telling the truth here. Yeah, it remains a quote that this unambiguous testimony comes from a policeman and his wife. Now please, continue.
Yes, sir. We ran straight over, of course, and then went for help at a nearby police box.
Hold it!
Was it your husband who went to fetch help?
No, I went. I may not be a police officer myself, but I am the proud wife of one after all. Isn't that right, my darling?
Yes.
That's right. I asked Mrs. Beat to go. I was off duty by that point, but a Bobby's never truly off duty, of course, so I felt obliged to stay and guard the scene.
Very laudable, Mr. Beat. Preserving the scene of a crime is a task of considerable importance.
That's why I sent Patricia, you see. I told her where to find the right police box.
Forgive my ignorance, but what do you mean exactly by the right police box?
Depends on the crime's location, you see, as to who deals with it. Where the woman was stabbed wasn't actually on my beat. So I told Patricia the way to the police box for the beat the incident fell under, so she could go and report it. I ran there as quickly as I could and asked for help from the Bobby on duty. There is nothing more potent than a young couple in love working together, you know.
And thanks to your swift response, the case was quickly resolved. The actions of two model citizens.
Oh, please, you're making me blush. Isn't he, darling? Yes, sir. What Patricia said, sir.
Let's move on, shall we?
It was definitely that Japanese man in the dock. Rolly and I both saw him as clear as day.
Hold it!
But surely you wouldn't have been able to see his face by the light of the gas street lamps, would you?
We absolutely could. Us Londoners have exceptional eyesight, I'll have you know.
Right.
The light from the street lamps was more than enough. And my husband already told you that the fog was only light, didn't he?
Yes. And what of the fog? We're famous for it across the globe, I believe. But it's an absolute menace to those of us who have to live with it, of course.
Oh, it is. When it's thick, you can't even see the hand at the end of your own arm.
Yes, all right, I take your point. Now, could you stop shaking your husband about?
The constant fog makes your eyes very sharp, you see. That's why we can tell you for sure and certain that it was that little Japanese man we saw. Can't we, darling? Yes. Oh, it was the accused, and no mistake. Mustache, hunchback, The cat-like eyes, the taut mouth, the snub nose. Unmistakable, sir.
As far as this couple's testimony is concerned, there can't be any question. It was Soseki-san they saw running away from the scene of the crime. So that's it, is it? That's their entire testimony? What do you think, Mr. Naruhodo? Well, I hate to admit it, but on hearing the testimony, it really does seem as though Mr. and Mrs. Beat saw what they saw. Mr. Natsume running away from the scene on Briar Road that day. Yes, I feel the same. So if that's true, where does it leave us? Members of the jury are sure to call for a guilty verdict after this testimony. Oh no. What do? We asked them what direction they were coming up on because they said it happened in front of them. Mr. Natsume would have had to be coming south. This only checks out if they were going north up the walk. However, previously stated, sorry, I'm knocking things over on my desk. Previously stated there was no one around, so they would have presumably then had to have come from the east. But Old Man and Natsume would have seen, or they would have come from the west, but then they wouldn't have been able to see that because then Natsume would have run right past them to go into the house. Therefore, the only other option is that they themselves were coming south, but that would have meant that Natsume and the woman were going north, which we know wasn't true. So that is the critical point. What direction were they going on that map? If Kazuma-sama were here, what are you trying to say? I think he would try to find a contradiction somewhere else within their testimony. What do you mean, somewhere else? Their statement about seeing Mr. Natsume is unequivocal. Calling that into question won't help. But if you could identify some other part of their testimony which appears to contradict the facts, you might be able to discredit them, and make the jury doubt if the pair's memory of the day is accurate. Oh, right. Put simply, we must focus on finding a discrepancy in these statements somewhere. If we don't, I'm afraid the trial may reach an early and unfavorable conclusion. Why do I always seem to be so up against it?
Mr. Lawyer, sir, can I ask you something?
Yes, of course. What is it?
Well, you keep asking us all these questions about everything we've told you, so... It seems like you don't believe our testimony, is that right? Is it? Well, out with it.
What? No. Oh, no, it's really not that at all.
My husband's a policeman, remember? And I know what I saw. I remember every last detail, everything. Like... Oh, I know. What about the books the man dropped? I can tell you the names of every single one I could. Every single one. And you dare to question how reliable my testimony is.
That will do, Mrs. Beat.
No, it won't do at all. This Japanese lawyer has no idea what I'm capable of. Even if I decide to forgive him for insulting us, don't you think for a minute that Rolly will?
I really didn't mean to cause offense. Please put your husband's fists down. Perhaps you would like the opportunity to supplement your testimony, Mrs. Beat. Might that appease you?
Oh, thank you, my lord. That would settle things nicely. Wouldn't it, darling?
Supplement how? I can even tell you the names of the 4 books dropped at the scene.
Hold it!
Do so, please. Yes, we know that there were books dropped at the scene of the crime, as you say. It was purchased by the accused at the nearby second-hand bookshop on the day in question.
After I'd been to the police box for help, I decided to have a good look over the area for good measure. A proud policeman's wife, after all. I did it for Rolly.
And what was your husband doing at the time?
Oh, he was lying face down in the snow, getting some well-deserved rest. He works ever so hard, you know. Ever so hard, don't you, my darling?
Interesting way of guarding the scene of the crime. Well, Mrs. Beat, seeing as you've regaled the court with tales of your powers of recollection, would you be so kind as to recount the titles of the books you observed at the scene?
I'd be happy to. Now, are you all listening before we do this?
Picture meal, Canterbury. There was a picture of Monsieur somebody or other, and what's it, yearnings? And then there was a meal for someone, and the last one was definitely the thingamy something. The last one. We only have 3 written down. A meal for someone, a picture of someone, yearnings. What's this 4th one you talk about? Plus the picture doesn't show a 4th one either. You see? Yes, I see there are 1 or 2 holes in your memory. Oh, well, they were along those lines, I'm quite sure. There were indeed books found at the scene with titles along those lines, as you put it. Well, what did I tell you? So I think it's very mean the way you've been implying that my testimony can't be trusted. Don't you agree, darling? Anyone who upsets my Patricia will have me to answer to. Terrifying. Yes, she really is. So that's it, is it? That's their entire testimony? What do you think, Mr. Naruhodo? Well, I hate to admit it, but on hearing the testimony, it really does seem as though Mr. and Mrs. Beat saw what they say they saw. Oh, we're doing this again. Okay. So we know it's got to be in the last bit of the testimony. Right, because... Okay, we've already pressed on this. Can I press again to then dispute, or... The 4 books he dropped. Okay, I think I can present this now, actually.
Objection!
So, you're saying that there were 4 books. That's right, I remember all of them. The picture of Monsieur Somebody, What's It Yearnings, A Meal for Someone, the Thingamy Something. I'm sorry, Miss Beat, Mrs. Beat, but there's a fundamental flaw in that statement of yours. Oh no, what flaw? Simply that at the scene of the crime, there were only 3 books, not 4. What? This is the receipt from the bookshop where the defendant bought his books. Your books? Yes, and it details Mr. Natsume's purchases that day. But as you can see, only 3 books are listed. Only 3? But no, that can't be. I remember seeing them. There were 4 books, I tell you. 4 dirty old books. Oh, really? Have a good look at this photographic print of the scene of the crime. As you can clearly see from this evidence as well, there are only 3 books. But I just don't believe it. I saw them there, I swear it, I saw them. No, madam, I'm afraid your powers of observation cannot be relied upon. So it cannot be denied that though you say it was the defendant you saw, you could very well be mistaken. Oh no, no. No!
Objection!
It's plainly evident that it is your powers of deduction that cannot be relied upon, my learned Nipponese friend. What? What cannot be denied is that these 2 witnesses saw the accused running from the scene, a fact that you know very well you have no hope of disproving. So you've striven to avert attention from that by dint of some inconsequential discrepancies. Would that be fair? I wouldn't say inconsequential. It proves that someone else was there. Sees right through me. But your plan has somewhat recoiled against you. What are you talking about? It's quite simple. Let me explain with a toast. Smash! To the policeman's wife and her entirely accurate testimony in every aspect. Oh? See, the matter is not up for debate. At the scene on Briar Road, a total of 4 books were most definitely found.
Objection!
But what about the photographic print? It only shows 3 books. Quite right. Only 3 can be seen in that print. That print? You mean to say... Allow me to present another, one that shows the victim's hand. The lion's pride. Burned. I don't believe it. It's the 4th book. As you will observe, the 4th book was hidden from view in the original print by the victim's torso. Oh. No! Order! Order!
There, you see? You see? Look at that. Look, look, look.
Yes.
It's just like I said, isn't it, my darling? Yes, sir. Patricia's always right, sir.
Let us study the receipt for the books purchased by the accused on the day in question. Mrs. Beat, the titles once again, if you please.
Oh, yes, of course. The picture of Monsieur somebody or other.
Picture of Monsieur Lecoq.
What's it, yearnings?
Canterbury yearnings.
A meal for someone?
A meal for whatever. Gabor. As the court has just heard, the witness remembers the book's titles flawlessly, save for a few minor details. Mrs. Beat's power of recollection can only be described as exceptional.
Did you hear that, Rolly? The gentleman paid me a compliment. Yes, sir. Flawless, sir. Patricia is flawless.
But there are only 3 books on the receipt, and Mrs. Beat mentioned 4. There's nothing surprising about that. Clearly, the 4th book is that which is shown in this photographic print. I'm sorry, counsel, but does that not seem odd? Why should the 4th book be omitted from the receipt? It's not odd at all, my lord. As the photograph clearly shows, the 4th book was found in the victim's clutches. In other words, it belongs to the victim. The victim was holding her own book? I wonder, what became of that 4th book? Obviously, it wasn't overlooked by the investigating officers at Scotland Yard. I have it here as evidence. You will submit that and the aforementioned photographic print to the court, please, counsel. My pleasure, my lord. Second crime scene photo has been entered into the court record. And the 4th book, The Lion's Pride. Prosecution rests. I'm willing to bet it's the clown. The other lodger. But I'm willing to bet also that the game's narrative is going to take us through, it was what's-his-face. And then all that drama is yet another red herring as we basically play through ultimately what is a visual novel and anime-style episodes. I have nothing further to add. What? Guess I'm surprised, my learned friend. But your resistance until now has been in vain. Entertaining, yes, but futile. The spurious longer route to the accused lodgings that you tried to establish in your summation examination, and the attempted discrediting of the witness's power of recollection in your cross-examination. Futile? I walked right into this, didn't I?
You see, everything we've said is true. Isn't that right, my darling? Yes, Pat. Marry me, Pat.
Sorry? So perhaps the ladies and gentlemen of the jury would like to reconsider their positions, should the court waste any more time on this Nipponese travesty? Or is the decision you have to make all too apparent already? You have heard all the witnesses and seen all the evidence.
This trial has run its course.
Mr. Naruhodo, I'm afraid we're in a terribly precarious position. I know, but we're just waiting on the Deus Ex Machina part to give us new information. If I fight back in the wrong way now, I could very well just make matters worse. Think, Ryunosuke, think. What do you do now?
Raise an objection.
Objection!
Is clearly the only choice, always. I'm not done yet.
No, my learned friend, it's over. That last cross-examination was your final chance to establish a credible defense, and you failed. The die has been cast. There's no more room for debate.
Well, it might be over as far as you're concerned, but I did not look at the court record here. Why even, what good does this do me? The only time I think it ever was used when we were looking in the carriage at a spot of blood or something. But, let me see. It's a book entitled The Lion's Pride. I'm afraid I don't know any English literature at all, so it wouldn't be something I've heard. Wait a minute. The Lion's Pride? That's strange. I think I've heard of a book by that name before, and very recently, too. It's a title I recognize, too, Mr. Naruhodo. Oh, look at this. The book has been badly burnt. You're right. You'd never be able to read it in this state, especially not the latter pages. What a terrible waste. Judging from the scorched edges of the paper, I think the damage must have occurred very recently. A book recently damaged by fire. Why does that seem to raise a red flag with me? My memory is like a goldfish. I can't remember something that happened last episode. Anything else detailing this? It's too bad I can't open the front cover and then it's like, oh, it's Lord What's-Its-Face. Okay, well, we know the clue that we will need to present should we present anything at all. Okay, it might be over as far as you're concerned, but I can't think of what to say. If I may, Lord Van Zeeks, it seems somewhat boorish to close down the debate at this point.
You're insignificant, at least, and Isle must be a lawless hole indeed. For a lowly judicial assistant to have the audacity to intervene at a moment like this.
Oh. I am, to my shame, still a very inexperienced lawyer. So you will have to forgive me, but I consider my assistant's advice essential and her opinions invaluable. And Mr. Naruhodo. One of this land's great guiding principles is tolerance. Brexit. So the court will hear you, madam. Go ahead, Mr. Sato, please.
Very well. Pray, what insight can you give us? What have we all overlooked in this matter that you see fit to preserve further?
Well, the court has been presented with new evidence, but only after the last cross-examination finished.
I see.
So you believe that this new evidence warrants further examination, do you?
Mr. Naruhodo, what do you think? What do you think? It's just possible that this new evidence might be the decisive proof we've been waiting for. The judge is sure to ask the members of the jury to announce their leanings in a moment. And, of course, he's sure to ask you to explain what the crucial piece of evidence is and why. So we must take this opportunity to examine the newly presented evidence as thoroughly as possible. Yes, I understand, and thank you, Miss Sato. This is it. Sato-san has managed to win us one last chance here. I can't let it go to waste. The defense wishes to present evidence, my lord.
Very well. The defense may present one further piece of evidence. Evidence that apparently offers a profound insight into this case and has hitherto been overlooked.
It's gotta be this, yeah?
Take that!
The music didn't change. Evidence in question is what we can see from the newly presented photographic print of the crime scene. I didn't pick the print. I picked the book. The fourth book, found in the victim's hand.
Objection!
We have already discussed the fourth book at length. Other than it being in the victim's grasp at the time of the incident, no significance has been attached to it. Pursuing the matter further would be a flagrant waste of the court's time, as you well know.
Yes, I'm afraid, counsel, I must concur with the prosecution on this matter. When I afforded you this opportunity, you led the court to believe that the evidence in question contained a hitherto undiscovered clue.
Does it not?
So I must insist that you elaborate, counsel. You will identify this clue at once. Do I make myself clear?
Oh, yes, my lord. It's, Mr. Naruhodo. I believe the prosecution is trying to avoid a thorough examination of the evidence, which means you may very well be on the right track. Yes, I think you might be right.
So, counsel, precisely where is the vital clue to this case which this fourth book conceals?
Got it!
I would ask the court to observe the back of the book in question.
The back? What do you... Good gracious. It's been burnt to a crisp.
So we have to ask ourselves, why was the victim clutching what is clearly an unreadable book? It is undeniably an extremely unnatural thing for her to have been doing.
Objection!
Unnatural, you say? And what of it, my Nipponese friend? Were I to concede the point, if it bears no relation to the case, there is nothing to discuss. So, should you wish to assert that this fire damage is some veiled clue as to what happened that day? Pray, do enlighten us. What truth does this charred book hide?
Charred book. There is just one possibility here which I can't quite bring myself to rule out. It's an outside chance, certainly, but worth a try. Alright, I'll explain my theory.
Don't keep us waiting any longer then, counsel. Explain this theory of yours. What are you suggesting that you could ascertain from the fire damage this sorry tome has suffered?
My lord, the burn on the back of this book reveals a startling truth about the book's owner.
I beg your pardon?
But we already know who the book belongs to. The victim was gripping it in her hand as she fell to the floor, after all. It's obviously hers.
The question of how this book came to be in the victim's hand has yet to be answered. However, as to the questions of who the book belongs to, would it not be whom and where it originated, the defense has very credible answers.
Good gracious, how can you possibly...
Very well, I'll play along with this futile attempt to delay your inevitable demise. But do remember, the members of the jury may well burn you if your little gamble goes awry.
Counsel, the defense's response here is very likely to influence the final outcome of this trial. So, tell the court, who do you claim is the owner of this burnt book?
Take that!
The answer is that the book belongs to the couple who own the house where the defendant has his lodgings. A certain Mr. and Mrs. Garadeb.
The landlords?
The landlords?
And whether this is some extraordinary coincidence or not, some kind of fate at work, I don't know, but of all the people in London, one of the 6 chosen for the jury duty in this courtroom today is none other than Mrs. Garadeb herself.
Oh my goodness, me? I think you must be mistaken, sir. I'm not Mr. Garadeb's wife, I'm his maid.
Things would be so much easier if you would just drop the pretense. Alright then, how about a simple question for you? Have you ever seen this book in Mr. Garadeb's house?
I would never presume to know all the books he keeps, sir.
Objection!
is outlandish behavior. This woman is the accused landlady, you say? You implicate this hard-working member of the public, you besmirch her without a shred of evidence. Your actions are unforgivable.
Objection!
Now we can make him testify. This is not mere conjecture. The defense happens to know that on the day in question, at almost exactly the same time as the victim was stabbed on the pavement below, another incident was taking place in the room on the top floor of Mr. and Mrs. Garrideb's house.
Good Lord! What sort of incident, counsel?
Fire, my lord.
Afraid to say it was. Happened in the blink of an eye, no. I forget your voice, sir. The whole place filled with smoke. Couldn't see a belly thing. It didn't take long for the fire to spread, of course. The belly furniture started going up as well. The worst of it is I lost my favorite book called The Lion's Pride. Curious.
The Lion's Pride.
By Jove, the very same title that's the subject of this debate. Oh, dear me.
Objection!
This is risible. All you've told the court is that a book by the name was involved in a fire. In which case, it would be reasonable to assume that it was burnt to ashes. Did you not look at the back of the book, sir? And entirely unreasonable to infer that it magically removed itself to the scene of the crime. Perhaps it would make more sense if I told you that the cause of the fire was marital discord. Without going into details, it appears that Mrs. Garrideb was considerably enraged. Apparently, she continued to attack Mr. Garrideb even amid the flames.
Oh, how awful. I can't even imagine being so horrid to the one you love. Can you, Rolly? And you, Rolly? Absolutely not, sir. My Patricia would never raise a finger against me, sir.
Go on.
They're all my favourite old novels in that case, but as soon as the fire got hold of them, that was that. Whoosh, up in smoke. Then the wife started hurling things at me. There was I, backed up against the window, and a heavy enemy fire. Incendiary books coming 10 to the dozen. The man had his back up against the window, and he had burnt books thrown at him. Goodness gracious, are you suggesting that the book was thrown through a window and landed coincidentally at the scene of the crime?
Objection!
No, a thorough investigation of the surrounding area was conducted the very evening of the incident, and there is no report of the Garrideb's window pane being broken. That's quite true. We also saw no sign of broken glass when we visited the Garrideb household. But is it not conceivable that the window was open at the time in... Not even remotely. Let us not forget the season and the chilling weather that accompanies it. But if they wanted the fire to... and the smoke from the fire... No Londoner would ever leave a window open in the middle of winter.
Does the defense postulate this scenario at all? In all seriousness, counsel? Do you earnestly claim that the book found at the scene was a flaming projectile thrown by Mr. Garrideb's wife?
I believe it's a possibility, my lord.
That's quite enough.
I'm only assuming it's her. Yes.
Well, I hope that everyone can see you for what you are now, you little foreign trickster. You call yourself a lawyer, but you're just a coward, a mean coward.
Really?
Claiming that our little tiff set the whole neighborhood alight, honestly. Implying that I'm merely posing as a maid for appearance's sake. How could you? It's nothing to do with this beastly case, not any of it. All you've done is sully our family's name.
No, I assure you that was never my intention.
Dragging an upstanding citizen's name through the mud simply to divert attention from your failing defense. I should box your ears, that's what I should do. It's utterly unforgivable.
I mean, now we can call witnesses, right, to collaborate.
Too right.
Here we go. How long have we sat here now listening to this Nipponese spouting out his fancy foreign theories? But think about it. At the end of the day, the only person who could possibly have stabbed the victim is that little hunchback with the mustache, and he ran away from the scene, too.
I do declare you're right.
It's true.
Yes. What did I tell you?
Makes sense to me, and I don't remember everyone's fucking voices. Sorry, what was it? Well, it would appear that the ladies and gentlemen of the jury are once again in full agreement. What is your position, Lord Van Zieks?
So who's going to come in and save the day now, do you think? In truth, my lord, I feel these have been unnecessarily protracted proceedings. But then one must always exercise patience in order to savor the best vintage. No, wait! The mystery of the fourth book still hasn't been... If books are your predilection, my learned friend, study them on your own time. What, no forgive the discourtesy this time?
In that case, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you will now state your individual decisions regarding the defendant's culpability for the court to hear.
Guilty!
Guilty.
Guilty!
Guilty.
Guilty!
Guilty.
And we must do this again.
Thank you for that unambiguous response.
That's twice now. It's over. Mr. Naruhodo, don't give up. Mrs. Sato, have you forgotten? The battle isn't over yet. You're not suggesting... Of course, the defense has the right to another summation examination at this point. You could still convince the jurors to change their minds. You have one more chance. My lord, the defense asks to exercise its right to a summation examination. You believe you still have tricks up your sleeve. I don't intend to trick anybody. I intend to uncover the truth. There's no time to be downcast. As long as there's a chance, I have to stay strong and determined. God, why does it take so long? I see there. Where are we? Here will do. All right. On the next episode. I'll see you then.